This happened a long time ago, more than 20 years ago. I was younger then, full of ambition, and counted that modern medicine, developing in the only right direction, and everything else is nothing but shamanism, quackery, and autosuggestion. My faith in official science was unwavering. That year, we got together on a serious hike, group of 6 people. All men are adult conscious, with no alcohol, no nonsense, with no craving for dubious entertainment. We were good friends, time-tested and joint forays, decided to go through a new, uncharted route, which they planned themselves on paper maps with a compass in hand. There was no GPS back then. Satellite phones and other amenities relied on navigating the old-fashioned way. According to our calculations, the whole route should have taken 20 days of products. We took stock for 23 days. Somewhere on the 2nd or 3rd day of the way, communication with the outside world finally ended. No signals, no people, not even a hint of civilization. We were walking in deaf places, where, as we later realized, rarely stepped human foot. We passed the first half of the route without incident. I will not describe in detail the beauty of nature, our feelings, encounters with wild fauna. I'll just say that at some point we started to feel someone's presence. Saw the marks, knew what's nearby bear trails and rookery. Walked carefully, trying not to disturb the wild inhabitants, and turned down the psycho routes. However, about the 10th day of the hike, the situation changed dramatically. One of our mates, let's name him Lyosha, felt bad. At first, he just complained of discomfort in his lower abdomen from the right side, and weakness. We thought that maybe ate something wrong or just overworked. But by the evening, it became clear that the case is much more serious. Belly swelled, vomiting started, face turned pale, temperature appeared. He barely kept on his feet. Inside me, everything shrunk. I realized what it looks like. Faced one of the most dangerous situations in conditions, complete isolation. Acute inflammation of the appendix. At the beginning, I tried my best to ward off anxious thoughts. Hoped that it would be possible to relieve acute symptoms in Alexei with antibiotics, antipyretic, painkillers. There was something in our field medicine cabinet in case of cuts, cold sprains, even antiseptics and bandages, but no pills helped. Alexei's temperature continued to rise. Vomiting didn't stop. Pain intensified. He was literally twisting from torment. And I understood more and more. It's not food poisoning, not a cold, namely appendicitis. Moreover, everything pointed to that the transition to the purulent stage has begun, and the threat of peritonitis became more real. The night passed in anxious thoughts, rare injections of hope, and attempts to alleviate the condition. Wet wipes, cold stomach, repeated dose of antibiotic. But in the morning, everything became clear. Alexei was raving. He started getting chills. Stomach became tense and painful, even with light touch. I realized there is no more choice. I'm gonna have to have surgery. In the field, with a minimum set of tools, without assistance. And what's the scariest thing? Without anesthesia. In my first aid kit, I always had a standard camping medical kit. Scissors, tweezers, bandages, alcohol, iodine, gloves, even suture material, and needles, in case of emergency opening of the boil or stitching. But on surgery, I confess, didn't count. I didn't have a local anesthetic, not even full anesthesia. It was my mistake, and now my comrade could pay for it. But before I continue, need to tell about the event, which happened 2 days before and played a crucial role. Then, passing along the winding Taiga Creek, we unexpectedly came out to a strange place. On the shore stood a strong house, good as if cut from another time. He was clearly residential smoke from the pipe, neatly stacked firewood, stretched ropes with linen, leaning goat. Women's and children's things hung on one of the ropes. That was weird. We left the last village 2 days ago, and to the nearest settlements was at least 70 kilometers. through the deaf taiga. There were no trails here, no roads or even traces of machinery. Electricity, too. There was a feeling like this house grew up here against all odds. We exchanged glances and immediately understood. It's a hideout people who for some reason decided to hide from the world, maybe from problems, from the law, from civilization itself. We did not get close, didn't feel like breaking their privacy or provoke aggression, went around the house in an arc, trying hard not to make noise. Only one time it seemed to me what a baby face flashed behind the curtain. Scared, I turned away. Going a little further downstream, we camped and had a sleepover. When we stretched our tents and started making a fire, unexpectedly noticed that someone is watching us. Out of the bushes peeked a boy of 8 years old, skinny tanned, with wary, but with a lively look. That was the real Tauge Mowgli savage, but with some unusual inner calm. We are grown men. We're packed in full. From head to toe, tight clothes, only hands and faces remained open, and then thickly smeared with all sorts of chemistry from mosquitoes and midges. Insects literally haunted by the day, not at night, and this kid stood in front of us in one briefs.
Yes.
In ordinary children's underpants and slaps on the bare foot. His skin was dark, weathered and sunburnt from the sun, but what struck, there was not a single bite mark on it. No mosquitoes or midges. As if they didn't notice him at all. I couldn't get it. How is this possible? We summoned him, and he came up completely unembarrassed. Introduced himself Ignat. He spoke clearly, confident without hesitation, and immediately started asking, "Who are we? Where did we come from? Where are we going? Why did we get here? And how did we even get here?" It was clear that the guy is very sociable, but not chatty. His every word made sense. We are, of course, they also asked him. It turned out he lives nearby in a lonely house on the shore, together with his father and pregnant mother, which, in the coming days, had to give birth to his little brother. I noticed then how independent and free he was to communicate, but at the same time, when we tried to carefully find out who are his parents, what are they doing? Why do they live so far from the villages of civilization? He deftly walked away from answers, not being rude, not wary. Just didn't feel the need to share this. Perhaps his parents taught him to be restrained. We wanted to treat him to chocolate, but he suddenly refused, said that from sweet he has indigestion. I offered him a date instead. Ignat tried it, and in his eyes reflected genuine surprise. It was clear that nothing like him before. Did not eat the taste of exotic fruit it's impressed. He carefully asked, "Is it possible to take some for Mom?" Of course I didn't regret. Spilled him a whole package of our supplies. Ignat was glowing with happiness. Thanked with that sincerity, which happens only in children, and holding the treat to his chest, ran home, jumping on the path, and I stayed to sit by the fire and reflect. Who are his parents? How do they live, and will I make trouble feeding their son? When it started to get dark closer to night, someone came up to our camp again. We got wary. There should be no strangers in the taiga. But it turned out to be the same familiar boy, Ignat, only now he did not come empty-handed, with a can, fresh milk, and some neatly wrapped in a towel, with a shining face. He put it all in front of us and said happily, "Mom asked to tell you thank you for the treat. This is to you from us." Moments later, a grown man appeared from behind his back. High dryness. Behind rude hands from work and attentive look. He introduced himself, Nicholas Stu. Father Ignatius. At first he was like eyeing us a little, appreciating what kind of people we are, and then straight up asked, "And for a long time, you are going to stand here, and where the way hold?" We explained to him that we are moving along the route. That camp is temporary, stand just for a couple nights. Further towards the nearest tributary, and they're already in touch. He smirked at this and asked with a slight smile, "Well, Mumu are not going to drown. And you will not arrange drunken brawls either." We busted out laughing, shook their heads and assured that everything is quiet, peaceful. We are disciplined people. They came to the taiga not to rage, a work and explore. Nicholas nodded satisfactorily and turned to Care. Throwing at last. "Then okay, the milk is fresh. Only have to drink immediately. Will not sour until the morning, and the tortilla is still warm." Jenka tried. When we opened the bundle, then found inside a large blush, still a warm tortilla. What was she made of? I never got it. The dough wasn't quite ordinary, with something like herbal spices and a subtle milky aroma. But the taste was divine. We cut it into pieces and divided it among ourselves, a piece to each. For these few days in the wilderness, even simple food began to seem something amazing. And this gift especially. We ate everything to the crumb, milk drank to the last drop, jar washed properly. To don't be ashamed and put her in a prominent place, nap next to the path, leading towards their home. No one else came to us, neither Ignat nor Nicholas, neither his wife, but a trace of that kindness and those concerns stayed in memory for a long time. However, it was too early for us to rejoice. I understood that avoiding surgery would not work. We were just in the middle of the route, far from the nearest town, from people, from connection, from at least some help. Accelerated pace to reach civilization didn't seem possible, and calling for help is completely unrealistic. Phones were silent, walkie-talkie only caught hum. I was more and more inclined to think that the only way out, seek help from those weird ones. But to benevolent people, living in a secluded house on the shore of me seemed not. I was hoping they might have something useful. Maybe motorboat walkie-talkie. An old first aid kit with something similar to painkillers. And if even none of this is there, then at least shelter, roof over your head, to try to have surgery not on bare ground. Under the starry sky, in a safer environment, we gathered to discuss everything with the whole group. Chose one, who will stay in the camp to guard things and equipment, and the three headed towards Ignat's house. When we approached the house, we were met by a woman hostess. Ignat was already there, but Nicholas, his father, apparently went somewhere. Most likely to hunt. Woman introduced herself. Evdokia. It was a pleasant-looking woman of 30 years, with kind but tired eyes. By her gait, heavy breathing and rounded belly was clear. What she is on 7th, and maybe the 8th month of pregnancy. She silently listened to our confused explanations, something thoughtfully nodding, but at the same time did not take a careful look from Alexei, of our comrade, who urgently needed medical attention. Suddenly, Ignat was nearby. He did not audibly approach his mother, took her hand and whispered, looking from the bottom up, "Mom, you can help them." Evdokia reacted instantly, shiked on her son, quickly looked around, as if checking if anyone can hear, and clearly began to think frantically about something. But the boy did not let up. He kept quiet, but persistently, "Well, Mom, they are good. They won't tell anyone." A woman clamped her lips and spiked. "Dad will kill me. Don't talk about Dad." "Well, maybe scold." "But no more," continued Ignat already, in an almost begging voice. He spoke sincerely, with faith in what else Mom crushed correctly. She hesitated for a long time, literally fought herself before our eyes. In her gaze flashed fear, determination, confusion. But after a few tense seconds, still made a decision. Silently waved her hand. Behind me, we silently followed her and entered the house. Inside, everything was modest, but thoroughly solid, heavy furniture made of wood, clearly handmade. No frills, but with love and knowledge of the matter, cozy and at home. It was clear that the owner is an economic and sleevey person. On the shelves neatly stood cans, blanks. Bunches of herbs were drying in the corner, and in the air hung a subtle smell of wood and dry plants. I was already mentally starting to get ready for surgery. Understood that without anesthesia, it would be extremely difficult for us and for Alexei. The guys and I decided in advance, what if you have to cut, then do with a bottle of strong brandy, stored for a rainy day? We'll have to tie Alexei to not breaking out, did not interfere between the teeth, insert a stick, to don't bite your tongue and break your teeth in pain. I began to voice my intentions to Eudokia, ask her to heat the water, give towel bandages, everything that is found, but she did not hear me at all. She kept looking at Alexei, more precisely on his stomach. Something professional flashed in her eyes. Accurate medical. Lay on the bench suddenly calmly, but firmly she told Alexei. We froze. She did not ask. Did not ask. It was an order, and there was no doubt in her voice. I got it right away. She doesn't just know how to help, she already made a decision. She's ready to inspect it herself. Perhaps not the first time faced with a similar. My brain was working in some weird way at that point. Slow motion, not from fear, no, but rather from the internal conflict between logic and what I felt on instinct level. I was still trying to rationalize what was happening and came to a conclusion. Perhaps Evdokia the healer maybe knows how to relieve inflammation in some folk ways. Some infusion compresses, herbs decoctions. This happens in deaf places. And I immediately decided if a person has physical strength, spiritual, whatever, this needs to be treated with respect. I internally gave her the lead role in this situation. She walked up to Alexei, like checking something, held her hand over his stomach, as if not touching, but at the same time clearly feeling what happens under the skin. For a few seconds she was silent, listening as if not with ears. And something else, some internal organ, tuned to human pain, then said calmly, even almost ordinary. Here the inflammation is strong. This should be deleted. It won't come out any other way, not to help anything. If you don't take it out, and added addressing Alexei. Hold up the sweater. Alexei looked at me silently. There was a question reading in his eyes. Are you serious? We are really going to do this now? I nodded. We both understood. There is no choice. The woman, meanwhile, calmly washed her hands, then took the towel, wet it in hot water and squeezing it off, rubbed Alexei's stomach. Everything was so casual, like she's done this 100 times already. We looked over with the guys, shrugged. And what was left for us? Watch, trust. Believe, though, not fully understanding. What exactly? And then something happened that still doesn't fit in my head and probably will never meet again. Evdokia stood opposite Alexei, slightly leaned over to his stomach and stretched his right hand forward. Palm was open, fingers closed, slightly stressed. She slowly and accurately held that palm over that place. Where should the appendix be? Her movements were smooth, as accurate as a surgeon, but without tools, and the next moment the impossible happened. Without any cuts, with no blood, no pain, the skin on Alexei's stomach started to diverge. Not like in science fiction movies, noise and special effects, a quiet smooth. As if someone unzipped her from the inside, muscle fibers slowly diverged behind the skin. We stood not breathing, unable not to shout, not take a step. It was like hypnosis. Evdokia calmly, confidently stuck her fingers inside, and a second later I took out an inflamed appendix swollen with a whitish plaque of pus. Purulent, whispered she, not so much to us. How much to yourself? One accurate rotational motion. She separated the process, pulled him outside, and put in a pre-cooked bowl. Then, as if nothing unusual had happened, with the other hand, carefully returned the organs to their place. After that, I spent my fingers over the sold-out skin again, and she seemed to magically close. No stitch, no blood, not a trace. It all took no more than 30 seconds. Maybe even less. We stood in complete daze. I just didn't believe my own eyes. Everything we just saw went against medicine. Logic with the very idea of reality, but this was happening right in front of me. Not in a dream, not in a movie, and here in the wilderness, on the bench in the house, where it smelled like wood and dried herbs. And what hit the hardest? Alexei, for all this time, did not even flinch. He lay only tightly clenching his teeth. But there is no shadow of pain on your face, no scream, no spasm, as if his body went into some weird, protected mode. Everything calmly said Evdokia, throwing a sneak peek at us. "We'll live after that." Her tone changed dramatically. With the tension in her voice, she added, "And now leave quickly. Until my husband came back. He can get very angry if finds out what I am." Phrase she didn't finish, just fell silent on the half word and scared, mowed down, looked towards the windows, as if waiting at any moment to see the figure of Nicholas emerging from the dusk of taiga. Something about this look made us not ask questions. It was clear there is something much more behind this woman's outward calm. We understood she took risks. In front of her husband, in front of someone else. We did not know we started. There was something mumbling back. Wanted to thank sincerely, from the bottom of my heart, for doing the impossible. May have saved Alexei's life. But she interrupted us, strictly and categorically. Never ever tell anyone about that. What saw here? Under no circumstances understood. Never did we nod. Not because they were afraid, but because they felt, that's right. The fact that we witnessed something that doesn't belong to our world, or maybe belongs to, but should not be revealed. We silently went out and went back to camp escorted. Silence of the night forest. Alexei was recovering literally before his eyes. After a couple of hours, he could sit normally, eel with appetite, and in the morning cheerfully got up and even laughed. I couldn't resist, decided to inspect his stomach, and what I saw knocked me off balance once again. The skin on my stomach was absolutely whole. No scar, no stripes, no hint of that. That here once there was inflammation, especially surgery. Why am I telling you all this now? It's been a long time, and I kept silent, kept this story to myself. Like a swear, but a few years later, we went the same route again. I thought not. I was hoping that that family of hermits still lives in that house on the shore, wanted to give them thanks, wanted to hug Ignat, tell Evdokia that her act is not forgotten. But when we got to that place, there's nothing left of the house, only traces of foundation, covered with moss and tall grass, no log or shard of glass, nor old things, as if people did not live here, like the house disappeared, dissolved in air. Apparently they left. Perhaps Nicholas found out, may have felt and decided that you have to disappear, or maybe it's just their time. But whatever. Alexei with us. He then went the whole route to the end. Participated in transitions, went through windbreaks. Fused on a boat, ate. Was joking, laughing. And still to this day doesn't complain at her stomach. Never even with the strongest loads. He is alive, healthy. And if I didn't see it with my own eyes ever, wouldn't believe it. What in that taiga, on that shore, in a wooden house, one woman changed the course of fate quietly. without trace and with condition, never tell.